Good morning, all. It's Friday morning, and welcome to the Vicarage, and welcome for our Bible talk for this morning. Friends, we are in the Gospel of Luke, and by goodness, isn't it good stuff? As I say, one of the great ways of doing this, as Luke's Gospel, is really dramatic. So, if you get a chance later on, read the readings again and imagine yourself in them. And we've got plenty of drama in our reading for this morning. It's actually two stories in one reading. So it's Luke chapter 5. I'm going to read you verses 12 to verse 26. So just try and feel the drama of this. And like I say, if you can't feel it now, I'll try again later. It's Luke 5, 12 to 26. Here goes. Once, when Jesus was in one of the cities, there was a man covered with leprosy. When he saw Jesus, he bowed with his face to the ground and begged him, "Lord, if you choose, you can make me clean." Jesus stretched out his hand, touched him, and said, "I do choose, be made clean." Immediately the leprosy left him, and he ordered him to tell no one. "Go," he said, "and show yourself to the priest, and, as Moses commanded, make an offering for your cleansing for a testimony to them." But now, more than ever, the word about Jesus spread abroad. Many crowds were gathered to hear him and be cured of their diseases. But he would withdraw to deserted places and pray. One day, while he was teaching, Pharisees and teachers of the law were sitting nearby. They'd come from every village of Galilee and Judea and from Jerusalem, and the power of the Lord was with him to heal. Just then, some men came carrying a paralyzed man on a bed. They were trying to bring him and lay him before Jesus, but finding no way to bring him in because of the crowd, they went up on the roof and let him down with his bed through the tiles into the middle of the crowd in front of Jesus. When he saw their faith, he said, "Friend, your sins are forgiven you." Then the scribes and the Pharisees began to question, "Who is this who is speaking blasphemies? Who can forgive sins but God alone?" When Jesus perceived their questionings, he answered them, "Why do you raise such questions in your hearts? Which is easier, to say, 'Your sins are forgiven you,' or to say, 'Stand up and walk'? But so that you may know that the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins," he said to the one who was paralyzed, "I say to you, stand up and take up your bed and go to your home." Immediately he stood up before them, took what he had been lying on, and went to his home, glorifying God. Amazement seized all of them, and they glorified God and were filled with awe, saying, "We've seen strange things today." And this is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Millions of sermons in there. You've got two highly dramatic readings here. I think the first thing to say about these readings is that they are wonderful stories in themselves, aren't they? I mean, they are classic Sunday school material, classic for any school, for a school assembly. It's the story of lowering the paralysed man in front of Jesus is just great. You know, you could act it out beautifully. It's just a wonderfully dramatic story. So I think the first thing to say about these readings is just, are they fantastic stories? I often say to parents who have their children baptised, you know, teach your children the stories of the Bible because they're the best stories in the world anyway. And you've got high drama here. You know, imagine someone digging a hole in the roof and loving. I mean, it's just a fantastic story, isn't it? So I think I just want to say 3 cheers for Luke for bringing us, as I say, just fantastic drama. And as I say, later on, if you like, just read it again, Luke chapter 5, 12 to 26, and just imagine yourself in there. Imagine what it must have been like to have been sitting there when the man comes down. It's just high drama, the reactions, the faces, you know, the astonishment. We've seen strange things. I mean, it's just, there's loads, isn't there? So, firstly, 3 cheers for Luke for a fantastic story. Second thing to say about this reading is it tells us again, like it's like a record that's got stuck, about just what a fantastic person Jesus is. Here he demonstrates his power over sickness, over leprosy, and secondly with the paralysed man. Jesus demonstrates his power over sickness, and Luke kind of waxes a bit just kind of accentuates this. So when he talks about the man with leprosy, he talks about a man covered in leprosy. If you're able, and Jesus says, "I am able." The point again, Luke is ramming home here in no uncertain terms, is that Jesus has both the power and the willingness to heal people. That he is Lord of all, including Lord over sickness. And here in this reading, he demonstrates with his authority, as I say, over the paralysis of this man, and also over the leprosy. Jesus demonstrates his power. So I think this again, the second thing to say about this reading is Jesus is demonstrating his power. And as I say, Luke makes the point, talks about the person being covered in leprosy. This is a big thing that Jesus has done here, and Luke wants to accentuate. So first, you've got 3 cheers for Luke for a fantastic stories, I should say, great readings, and thank you to Luke for bringing them to us. And secondly, again, the power of Jesus. The third thing, which again becomes a theme, and we're going to hear about it quite a lot in the next few days, is about Jesus' power over the Sabbath. One of the rules that they were really big on at the time was the Sabbath, and Jesus heals this paralyzed man on the Sabbath, and Jesus is then demonstrating his authority, if you like, even over the law, over the Sabbath, and that he's Lord even of that. And you'll see quite a lot in the next few days that Jesus heals people. And the Sabbath is a good thing. I mean, the Sabbath is important. We all need a day off. My goodness, don't we all need a day off? And that's why it says it. But the kind of legalistic way they were doing it wasn't right. And they got silly about it. And Jesus is demonstrating, of course, you can do good on the Sabbath. I mean, this man has been paralyzed for years. Of course, it's right to make him better. So the third thing about this thing is these readings, they demonstrate Jesus' power over the Sabbath day. But I want to say, I think briefly about each of these stories in particular. The man with leprosy. What I want us to pick up this morning is the fact that Jesus. I mean, leprosy in those days wasn't just a killer disease. In those days, if you got it, you became unclean. No one could touch you. No one could be with you. You could say you were considered. You had to walk with a bell, and you could walk into a room so people could get out if you were coming in, and so on. It was just a terrible thing to have. And it was considered unclean, and anyone that touched you became unclean as well. But here in this reading, we have Jesus, if you look carefully, he actually touches the paralyzed man, which A, is hugely dangerous to himself because of infection, and secondly, because it could have technically made him unclean. But I think the point I want to show, for us to get here, is that Jesus touched this unclean person. Jesus' love was not just from a distance. We do not have a God in heaven who just sits up in heaven barking out instructions all the time, going this like like some Roman emperor or something. Here we have Jesus, God on earth, touching this paralyzed man. And the whole purpose of Christmas is that God so loved us that he gave his son, who was actually born and became part of us. And I think this wonderful thing where Jesus touches this paralyzed man, that he doesn't just love from a distance, he actually touches this person at huge risk to himself and his reputation and everything else. Jesus touches this paralyzed man. So Jesus gets involved in the muck of our lives. And even when our lives feel a bit unclean and a bit messy, Jesus, or even a lot messy sometimes, Jesus is there. And I think Jesus shows his incredible compassionate love by touching this paralyzed man. That's the fourth thing. And then finally, there's this story about the paralyzed man being lowered down. And I don't know about you, but if I'd been sitting there and the man came blowing, I would have expected Jesus to say, get up, take your bed and go home. But he doesn't. He actually says, your sins are forgiven you. And then the Pharisees, or the religious tops knocking around thinking, you great Scott, you can't say that. You can't say that. No, you can't. Only God can forgive sins. And yet, ironically, they're right. Only God can forgive sin, of course. Absolutely right. But then Jesus comes to the conclusion to show, he says, that the Son of Man, that's himself, has authority to forgive sins. I say to the man, get up, take up your bed, and go home. Thus, by doing this incredible, it wasn't just a miracle. It wasn't just an amazing thing to do. It was pointing to the fact that Jesus can forgive sins. And the Pharisees were right. Only God can forgive sins. So putting two and two together tells us that Jesus is divine. Jesus demonstrated he can forgive sins and showed he can by healing this paralyzed man. So actually he's proving that he is divine, that he is God. So it's a fantastic thing. So 5 things briefly from these readings this morning. Firstly, 3 cheers for Luke for bringing them to us, because they are just brilliant readings. I imagine yourself, read them again later, imagine yourself in them. They're just fantastic, dramatic stories, brilliant. Second thing, Jesus is demonstrating again his power in healing a man who was covered in leprosy. You know, Jesus really does have the power and the willingness to help us in our lives. Thirdly, you have Jesus' power, authority even over the Sabbath day, and showing what it's meant to be. Fourthly, you've got Jesus actually touching the man with leprosy. Again, that's really demonstrating his amazing, his love for us, compassionate love. And then finally, you've got Jesus demonstrating his authority to forgive sin, doing something which, as the tops rightly say, only God can do. But Jesus did it because Jesus is divine, and that's the God we worship. My friends, great to see you. Don't forget to push the share button at the bottom so other people can enjoy these readings too.